If you're finding value in these profound insights about soul connections, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing these transformative teachings to those who need them most. Have you ever experienced a connection so profound it seemed to transcend the physical realm? A moment where time suspended, and you felt an inexplicable recognition of someone's soul? Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychologist who revolutionized our understanding of the human psyche, described these rare soul connections as manifestations of something far deeper than conventional attraction. Today we're exploring the 7 profound signs that indicate you've encountered your soul's counterpart. Not through the lens of superficial pop psychology, but through Jung's meticulously developed framework of analytical psychology and archetypes. These signs go beyond the transient emotions of infatuation or physical chemistry. They touch the deepest chambers of your psyche, activating dormant aspects of yourself that have waited lifetimes to be awakened. Whether you've already met this person, or they await you on your path, understanding these signs will illuminate the true nature of soul connections and why they play such a pivotal role in your individuation process, the journey toward becoming your complete, authentic self. Let's explore what Carl Jung revealed about these profound connections that change us at the most fundamental level of our being. Imagine this. You think of someone, and seconds later, they call. You keep encountering the same person in unlikely places. Or perhaps you both speak the exact same words simultaneously. While skeptics dismiss these as mere coincidences, Carl Jung identified these phenomena as something far more significant: synchronicity. Synchronicity, as Jung defined it, represents meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by conventional causality. These events occur when your internal psychic state aligns with external reality in ways that defy statistical probability. In soul connections, synchronicity isn't occasional, it becomes almost commonplace. When two souls are meant to connect, Jung noted, the universe conspires through synchronicity to create circumstances that allow this connection to flourish. This isn't mystical wishful thinking, but rather what Jung observed throughout decades of clinical practice and personal experience. The Journal of Analytical Psychology published a 2018 study examining synchronistic events in therapeutic relationships. Researchers found that meaningful coincidences occurred with significantly higher frequency between individuals with deep psychological resonance. This mirrors what happens when soul connections meet. The fabric of reality seems to bend slightly to facilitate their union. One particularly telling form of synchronicity appears through significant numbers, symbols, or patterns that both individuals recognize without prior discussion. You might both have an unusual affinity for the same obscure symbol, or find yourselves repeatedly encountering the same numerical sequence together. What distinguishes genuine synchronicity from confirmation bias is its objective manifestation. These aren't events you're stretching to find meaning in. They're occurrences so statistically improbable that they demand acknowledgement. As Jung stated, synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. A crucial aspect many misunderstand about synchronicity is its purpose. These events aren't merely cosmic entertainment or validation of a relationship. According to Jung, they serve as guideposts for individual and mutual psychological development. They indicate moments when the conscious and unconscious minds are in unusual harmony, creating opportune conditions for profound growth. The error many make is assuming all coincidences indicate a romantic destiny. Jung would caution against this interpretation. Not all synchronicities signal a romantic soul connection. Some point toward mentor relationships, friendships, or even necessary adversaries who catalyze our growth through challenge. The true indication lies in how these synchronicities facilitate your individuation process, your journey toward psychological wholeness. When you experience consistent, meaningful synchronicities with someone that contribute to your psychological evolution, rather than emotional dependency, you've likely encountered a genuine soul connection as Jung would define it. A relationship catalyzed by forces beyond the conscious mind, serving the higher purpose of mutual individuation. The second profound sign you've encountered, a soul connection, manifests through what Jung called the confrontation with the shadow. Your shadow contains all you've repressed, denied, or failed to develop in yourself. In ordinary relationships, we carefully guard these aspects. With a soul connection, these shadows emerge with remarkable speed and intensity. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, Jung wrote. This process occurs with extraordinary clarity in soul connection. The person mirrors back precisely what you've hidden from yourself, sometimes gently, often painfully. The Psychological Science Journal published research in 2020 on emotional triggering in close relationships. The study found that individuals experience the most acute emotional reactions with partners who activated unresolved psychological content. This directly aligns with Jung's shadow theory and explains why soul connections can simultaneously feel like coming home and entering unknown territory. One unmistakable characteristic of this mirroring is its specificity. Unlike general relationships where conflicts might center around common issues, soul connections target your unique psychological blind spots with surgical precision. If you struggle with abandonment wounds, your soul connection will inevitably activate these exactly. Not through malice, but through an unconscious resonance Jung termed mutual constellation. The Depth Psychology Alliance documented numerous case studies where individuals reported the same phenomenon, their deepest fears and unresolved trauma surfacing within weeks of meeting a particular person, despite having successfully concealed these issues in other relationships for years. This shadow confrontation manifests in three primary ways, according to Jungian analysis. First, through triggering situations that repeatedly expose your vulnerability. Second, through dreams that intensify after meeting, often featuring the person in archetypal scenarios. And third, through profound emotional reactions that seem disproportionate to actual events. The crucial distinction between a soul connection and a toxic relationship lies in what follows this shadow activation. In toxic dynamics, the shadow material becomes weaponized. In soul connections, it becomes the foundation for mutual healing. As Jung explained, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Your soul connection doesn't cause pain. They reveal where it already exists within you. Dr. James Hollis, a Jungian analyst, describes this process as the alchemy of relationship, where the heat of emotional intensity transforms both individuals. This transformation doesn't occur through discussion alone, but through lived experience, the unconscious speaking directly to the unconscious. When you find someone who consistently brings your shadows into the light, not to punish, but to heal, and when this process feels simultaneously familiar and revolutionary, you've likely encountered what Jung would identify as a soul connection, a relationship serving the higher purpose of making the unconscious conscious. The third sign reveals itself through a profound paradox, feeling as though you've known someone for lifetimes upon first meeting them. This phenomenon, which Jung categorized under his concept of the collective unconscious, manifests as an immediate, inexplicable familiarity that defies rational explanation. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances, Jung wrote. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. With soul connections, this reaction occurs almost instantaneously, a recognition that precedes knowing. The Journal of Consciousness Studies published research on what neuropsychologists term anomalous recognition experiences. The study documented cases where individuals experienced overwhelming familiarity with someone they'd objectively never met. Brain imaging revealed heightened activity in regions associated with memory retrieval, despite the absence of actual memories to retrieve. This explains the disorienting quality of meeting a soul connection. Your brain processes the encounter as a reunion rather than an introduction. Subjectively, it feels as if you're remembering someone, rather than meeting them for the first time. This recognition manifests through subtle but unmistakable signs. You may find yourself skipping the usual social formalities, instinctively understanding their nonverbal cues, or feeling comfortable in silences that would be awkward with others. As one patient in Jung's case studies described it, "It wasn't that I felt I knew him, it was that I felt he already knew me." Jung's concept of archetypal memory offers one explanation for this phenomenon. He proposed that certain relationships activate primordial patterns stored in our collective unconscious, patterns as ancient as humanity itself. When these are activated, the relationship feels simultaneously brand new and eternally familiar. The Istituto di Psicologia Analitica in Rome conducted a 10-year study on reported immediate recognition experiences. Their findings suggest these encounters often coincide with major life transitions or psychological threshold experiences. This aligns with Jung's observation that soul connections often appear when we're psychologically primed for significant transformation. A key misconception is interpreting this familiarity as evidence of literal past lives together. While Jung remained open to transpersonal explanations, his primary focus was on psychological reality rather than metaphysical speculation. From a Jungian perspective, whether this recognition stems from actual past association or archetypal resonance is less important than its psychological impact. What distinguishes genuine recognition from projection or idealization is its endurance beyond the initial encounter. False familiarity fades once actual knowledge of the person accumulates. True recognition deepens with knowing, as each new discovery confirms the initial intuition of connection. When you encounter someone who feels simultaneously like a stranger and an intimate companion, with whom conversation flows as if resuming rather than beginning, and when this familiarity endures rather than diminishes with actual knowledge, you've likely experienced what Jung would consider a hallmark of soul connection, a relationship that transcends the ordinary boundaries of time and acquaintance. The fourth sign manifests through what Jung identified as the most powerful unconscious dynamic in human psychology: the projection of the anima or animus. These archetypes represent the contrasexual aspects of our psyche, the feminine qualities within a man, anima, and masculine qualities within a woman, animus. The projection-making factor is the anima, or the animus, Jung wrote. When we analyze these projections, we recover our lost soul parts. With ordinary relationships, we project partial aspects of these archetypes. With soul connections, the projection is comprehensive and profound, creating an almost numinous quality to the attraction. The Archives of Psychology published research examining the neurobiological correlates of profound romantic attraction. The study found unique brain activation patterns when participants viewed images of partners they described in terms aligned with anima-animus projection compared to conventional attraction. These patterns showed significant overlap with activation, seen in profound religious or mystical experiences. This explains why soul connections often feel sacred, rather than merely pleasurable. You're not just experiencing attraction, you're encountering a living embodiment of your soul's counterpart, the missing piece of your psychological wholeness. This projection manifests through three distinctive characteristics. First, the person seems to embody qualities you've always valued, but haven't fully developed in yourself. For men projecting the anima, this often appears as an intuitive, creative, emotionally nuanced presence. For women projecting the animus, it typically manifests as purposeful action, principled thinking, or spiritual authority. Second, your emotional responses display unusual intensity and persistence. Where ordinary attraction might fade with familiarity, anima-animus projections often intensify through deeper knowing, creating what Jung called the incorruptible values in relationship. Third, the person catalyzes creative energy and psychological development. Jung observed that powerful anima-animus projections stimulate intellectual, artistic, or spiritual growth that transcends the relationship itself. The Institute for Psychological Research at Zurich documented how anima-animus projections differ from routine idealization. While idealization diminishes through contact with the person's limitations, genuine anima-animus projections incorporate these limitations while maintaining their transformative quality. The critical distinction Jung emphasized was the projection's ultimate purpose. While the initial stage involves seeing your own soul reflected in another, mature soul connections evolve toward integration, recognizing these qualities within yourself, stimulated but not dependent on the other person. When you encounter someone who seems to embody your unmanifested potential, who evokes not just desire but a sense of sacred recognition, and whose presence consistently catalyzes your psychological growth, you're likely experiencing what Jung considered the fourth sign of soul connection, the living manifestation of your anima or animus, calling you toward greater wholeness. The fifth sign emerges through a phenomenon Jung compared to the ancient practice of alchemy, a profound transformation of your fundamental nature. In ordinary relationships, we might grow incrementally. In soul connections, we undergo what Jung called the conjunctio oppositorum, the union of opposites that accelerates personal evolution exponentially. The alchemists saw in the union of opposites a symbol of psychic development, Jung observed. When soul connections enter our lives, they initiate precisely this process, catalyzing changes that might otherwise take decades or never occur at all. The European Journal of Psychotherapy published a longitudinal study tracking psychological development in individuals experiencing what they described as profound relational catalysts. The research documented accelerated integration of psychological polarities: confidence, humility, structure, spontaneity, independence, intimacy, compared to control groups. This empirically supports Jung's observation of soul connections as accelerants for individuation. This transformative effect manifests through tangible changes in multiple domains, in your daily habits and practices, as priorities naturally realign toward authenticity rather than social conformity. In your creative expression, as previously blocked energy finds channels for manifestation. In your relationship with your body, as the mind-body connection strengthens. And perhaps most noticeably, in your courage to face previously avoided truths. The Journal of Transpersonal Psychology documented cases where individuals made more significant life changes in the first year after meeting a particular person than in the previous decade combined. These weren't changes made to please the other person, but rather authentic expressions of dormant aspects of self. What distinguishes this alchemical transformation from codependency is its direction. Codependency creates regression toward psychological merger. The alchemical process of soul connections propels differentiation, becoming more distinctly yourself while maintaining connection. Dr. Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's closest collaborator, noted that the most reliable indicator of soul connection is not how someone makes you feel, but who they help you become. The question isn't whether they bring happiness, though they may, but whether they facilitate wholeness. A critical aspect of this transformation involves confronting what Jung termed the prima materia, the raw, unprocessed aspects of psyche that must be worked with to achieve integration. Soul connections inevitably bring these elements to the surface, creating periods of disorientation and discomfort that precede breakthrough. The Society for Psychological Anthropology studied transformation narratives across cultures. Their findings revealed consistent patterns in how individuals described relationship-catalyzed evolution. Initial destabilization, followed by intensified self-awareness, culminating in expanded identity that incorporated previously rejected aspects of self. When you find yourself rapidly evolving in the presence of another person, not becoming what they want, but becoming more authentically yourself, you're experiencing what Jung would identify as the fifth sign of soul connection. The alchemical transformation that accelerates your journey towards psychological completeness. The sixth sign manifests through a paradoxical dynamic Jung called enantiodromia, the tendency of things to transform into their opposites. In soul connections, this appears as a profound complementarity, where your strengths balance their vulnerabilities and vice versa, creating a system greater than its parts. Every process is partially or totally balanced by its opposite, Jung wrote. In ordinary relationships, differences often create conflict. In soul connections, they create completion, a dynamic balance that stabilizes both individuals while challenging them to grow. The Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin published research on what psychologists term adaptive complementarity in relationships. The study found that pairs displaying opposite but complementary traits showed greater relationship satisfaction and individual psychological health than those with primarily similar traits. This empirically supports Jung's observation that soul connections often embody significant psychological differences that serve a higher purpose. This integration manifests through four primary patterns. First, through complementary psychological functions. If you're highly intuitive but struggle with practical details, your soul connection often excels precisely where you falter. Second, through balancing introversion and extroversion energies, creating a relationship that both nurtures internal depth and facilitates external engagement. Third, through complementary shadow material, where your unacknowledged aspects find expression through the other person's conscious capacities. And fourth, through the balance of masculine and feminine energies regardless of biological gender, creating what Jung called the sacred marriage of opposing psychological principles. The International Association for Analytical Psychology documented case studies where individuals with chronic psychological imbalances found unprecedented stability through relationships that provided the exact qualities they lacked. Crucially, this wasn't dependency but mutual strengthening. Each person developed greater capacity in their areas of weakness through the other's modeling. What distinguishes this integration from codependency is its effect on individual functioning. Codependent complementarity weakens each person when separated. The integration seen in soul connections eventually strengthens each individual's capacity to embody both polarities, even when apart. Dr. James Hollis, noted Jungian analyst, observed that the most powerful soul connections don't primarily make life easier, they make us more complete. The initial relief of finding someone who compensates for our limitations evolves into the greater challenge of developing those capacities within ourselves. The Society for Personality Assessment conducted research on psychological completeness in long-term relationships. Their findings indicated that the healthiest connections follow a pattern Jung identified: initial relief through complementarity, followed by mutual development of complementary traits, culminating in both individuals embodying greater wholeness. When you encounter someone whose psychological makeup seems perfectly designed to balance yours, not enabling your limitations, but challenging you to develop beyond them, you're likely experiencing what Jung would consider the sixth sign of soul connection, the integration of opposites that facilitates true psychological completeness. The seventh and perhaps most profound sign emerges through what Jung called the transcendent function, the appearance of a shared purpose that transcends individual desires or conventional relationship goals. This manifests as the unmistakable sense that your connection serves something greater than yourselves. The meeting of two personalities is not just an end in itself, but the beginning of new possibilities, Jung wrote. In ordinary relationships, the purpose typically remains personal: mutual fulfillment, companionship, family creation. Soul connections inevitably orient towards something beyond these horizons. The Journal of Humanistic Psychology published research on what psychologists term mutual transcendence experiences in relationships. The study documented cases where couples reported a shared sense of serving a purpose that neither individual had fully conceived before their meeting. This empirically supports Jung's observation that soul connections often activate latent purpose that transcends individual identity. This transcendent function manifests through three primary characteristics. First, through synchronistic opportunities that seem to arise specifically for both individuals together rather than separately. Second, through creative collaboration that produces work neither could generate alone. And third, through the emergence of shared values and vision that evolve organically rather than through compromise. The Institute for Social Research tracked the life trajectories of individuals who reported profound relational catalysts. Their findings revealed that these connections frequently preceded significant vocational shifts, humanitarian commitments, or creative endeavors that benefited communities beyond the relationship itself. What distinguishes this transcendent purpose from shared interests or compatible goals is its seemingly destined quality. As Jung noted, when the transcendent function is activated, it appears as if guided by an intelligence not identical with the conscious mind. The transcendent function often reveals itself through dreams, intuitions, or synchronicities that point both individuals toward a shared path neither had fully envisioned alone. Jung documented numerous cases where life-defining purposes emerged not from rational planning, but through the alchemical combination of two psyches in deep resonance. Dr. Jean Shinoda Bolin, Jungian analyst and author, noted that the most profound indication of soul connection is not how it transforms the individuals, but how it ultimately serves life beyond them. The question becomes not only, how do we fulfill each other, but, what does life ask of us together? The Society for Consciousness studies conducted research on shared purpose in significant relationships. Their findings suggest that connections facilitating mutual individuation typically evolve towards service beyond the personal, whether through creative work, social contribution, or spiritual practice that benefits others. When you encounter someone with whom possibilities emerge that neither of you previously envisioned alone, whose presence seems to activate a purpose that transcends conventional relationship goals, and with whom you feel called toward meaningful contribution beyond yourselves, you're experiencing what Jung would identify as the seventh and most definitive sign of soul connection: the activation of the transcendent function that connects individual growth to universal purpose. These seven signs, synchronicity beyond coincidence, shadow revelation, timeless recognition, animus projection, alchemical transformation, integration of opposites, and the transcendent function, provide a comprehensive framework for understanding soul connections from Jung's psychological perspective. Unlike superficial compatibility or transient attraction, these connections serve the profound purpose Jung identified as the ultimate goal of human existence: individuation, becoming who you truly are in your completeness. Soul connections, properly understood, are not escapes from loneliness or vehicles for happiness, though they may provide both. They are catalysts for becoming your authentic self. As Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Soul connections facilitate precisely this privilege by activating dormant aspects of your psyche, challenging your limitations, and guiding you toward greater wholeness. Whether you've already encountered such a connection or it awaits you on your path, understanding these signs allows you to recognize and honor its true purpose: not mere companionship, but mutual transformation toward greater consciousness, authenticity, and service to life's larger purposes. If you found value in these insights about soul connections, please support our channel by subscribing, sharing with others who might benefit, and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. What sign resonated most deeply with your experience? Your perspective matters in this community of seekers.